This coin almost ended up in a junk drawer, but when someone finally looked closely, it sold for over $1 million. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand, one that could change your life forever. A small, copper-colored coin that most people overlook every single day. But this one? The 1969 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny is a legend hiding in plain sight. The year was 1969. The United States was in the middle of the space race. Neil Armstrong had just taken that giant leap for mankind. People were glued to their TVs, not their coins. But deep inside the Denver Mint, something unexpected was born, a small, unassuming penny that would one day shock the coin world. At first glance, it looked like any other Lincoln penny. Abraham Lincoln's calm face, the familiar date, 1969, and that tiny D under the year, marking it as a Denver Mint issue. Billions were made that year, so what could possibly make one worth over $1 million? Well, here's where the mystery begins. You see, a handful of these pennies were struck with a bizarre and incredibly rare error, so rare that even seasoned collectors were speechless when they saw it. Some 1969 D pennies showed doubling on the obverse, especially on the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust. Not just a slight blur or a small misprint. No, this is bold, dramatic doubling that makes the letters look almost shadowed, like the coin was struck twice with perfect misalignment. But that's not the only twist. For decades, rumors swirled that a small number of these coins were the result of experimental dies or early die-state misalignments at the Denver Mint, an accident no one was supposed to see. And when one surfaced in uncirculated condition, collectors couldn't believe it. A coin like this, in pristine mint state, was recently valued at up to $1.60 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When news spread about the discovery, everyone, collectors, dealers, even casual hobbyists, rushed to check their old jars of change. Stories began surfacing online and in newspapers. One man from Colorado reportedly found a 1969 D penny in an old coffee can in his garage. It was dusty, green from age, but when he cleaned it gently and looked under magnification, he saw something incredible: the doubled lettering. He sent it to be authenticated, and that small copper coin became the most valuable thing he had ever owned. Imagine that feeling, turning over a penny that's been sitting unnoticed for decades and realizing it's worth more than your house. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling each other in disbelief. "Another one's been found?" they'd whisper at conventions. "How many more are out there?" The truth is, no one really knows. The total number of surviving 1969 D double-die pennies is still uncertain, but experts estimate fewer than a couple dozen might exist in collectible condition. But what makes this coin so special, and so tricky, is that it's often confused with other, more common varieties. The Denver Mint struck billions of regular 1969 D pennies, and most of them are worth only face value. However, a tiny handful with doubling strong enough to be clearly visible to the naked eye can be life-changing. Here's the detail that makes all the difference. Look carefully at the word Liberty. On the genuine $1 million variety, you'll see clear, thick doubling, especially on the L and the B. The same goes for In God We Trust. It looks as if there's a faint shadow underneath every letter, bold, crisp, and unmistakable. And on 1969, the digits themselves appear to have been struck twice. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. Some experts believe this doubling came from a unique hubbing error, one that occurred when a master die was imprinted twice, slightly off-center. Normally, such a die would have been destroyed immediately. But somehow, one slipped through the system at the Denver Mint. And that mistake, that momentary slip in precision, created one of the most expensive modern pennies in U.S. history. Dealers are still scrambling to get their hands on verified examples. Every major coin auction has seen bidding wars break out over this tiny piece of copper. In one shocking sale, a near-mint specimen sold for over $1 million. Another, in slightly lower grade, still fetched hundreds of thousands. And every time one of these coins appears, it reignites the hunt all over again. But what happened after those sales is even more surprising. People started scouring flea markets, estate sales, and old penny rolls like never before. Entire communities formed online, sharing photos, magnifications, and hopeful discoveries. And yet, most still never find one. The odds are astronomical, but the possibility is real. One collector even joked, "I've spent more on magnifying glasses than I've ever made from pennies." But he kept searching. Because that's the thrill, knowing that somewhere, out there, a 1969 D penny worth $1.6 million could still be hiding in a coin jar, waiting to be found by someone who simply takes the time to look. The average person checks the mint mark, the D, and moves on. But the real secret isn't just the mint mark. It's the doubling on the date and inscriptions. If you find one, never clean it, never polish it. Handling it roughly can destroy the surface and instantly slash its value. Instead, place it in a soft coin holder and get it authenticated by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. They can confirm if what you have is the genuine double die, and if it is, you could be holding your ticket to a life-changing payout. Remember, even worn examples of the 1969 D double die penny have sold for tens of thousands. Uncirculated pieces? They're the true treasures, the ones fetching over $1 million. And that's why collectors call it the hidden miracle of Denver. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another person's forgotten coin jar became the start of a legend. And it could happen again, because history has a funny way of repeating itself in the most unexpected places. So before you toss your spare change into a jar, or hand a penny to the cashier without a second thought, stop. Take a closer look. That small, unassuming 1969 D penny might not just be another coin. It could be the single piece of copper that changes your life forever. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary, so easily overlooked, that it's been hiding in plain sight for decades. But beneath its dull copper glow lies a story that stunned collectors, shocked the U.S. Mint, and changed the way we look at pocket change forever. A man in Ohio empties his pocket after a long day, tossing a handful of coins onto the kitchen counter. Pennies, nickels, dimes, nothing special. But one of those pennies, worn, slightly discolored, catches his eye. No mint mark. He almost ignores it, until something about the way the light hits it makes him pause. That small decision, to take a closer look, changed his life, because what he held wasn't just any penny. It was one of the rarest, most mysterious Lincoln cents ever struck, a 1978 with no mint mark. And when it finally went to auction, it fetched a jaw-dropping $1.7 million. Now, how could a single penny, a coin most people won't even bother to pick up, be worth more than a luxury car, a house, even a lifetime of savings? The answer lies deep within the hidden secrets of the U.S. Mint, and the incredible twist of fate that gave birth to this $1 million coin. Back in 1978, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln Memorial cents. Philadelphia coins were made without a mint mark, as usual, but something unusual happened during production. A batch of coins left the press with an unexpected composition and near-perfect strike, possibly the result of an experimental die, a misaligned collar, or a planchet mix-up. At first, no one noticed. These coins slipped quietly into circulation, mingling with billions of their copper-clad cousins. Years went by. Millions of hands held them, spent them, ignored them. But one thing set the rare ones apart: a subtle difference in texture, tone, and metallic luster that only the sharpest eyes could catch. Collectors who know the signs describe the 1978 no-mint mark penny as having an unusually deep, mirror-like sheen on the obverse, especially around Lincoln's profile and the word Liberty. Under magnification, you can sometimes see signs of a double die, faint, shadowy outlines in the lettering or date, but the true giveaway lies in its weight and color. Some of these rare 1978 cents were struck on leftover 95% copper planchets from earlier runs, giving them a rich, reddish hue and a slightly heavier feel, around 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams of later zinc coins. Dealers who've handled one say it's like spotting a ghost, familiar yet unreal. One coin expert described holding it as Like touching a piece of American history that shouldn't exist. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2010, a near-perfect example surfaced at an estate sale in Pennsylvania. The family had kept it for years, unaware of its rarity. When it was appraised, the room fell silent. Every detail matched the characteristics of a rare off-metal strike, an authentic 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny struck on a pure copper planchet, preserved in pristine condition. When it hit the auction block, the bidding war was fierce. Collectors flew in from across the country. Prices soared past 6 figures, then 7. When the final hammer dropped, the coin sold for $1.7 million. 1 penny, a single cent, that could have easily been spent on a stick of gum decades earlier. And here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. Experts believe there may be more out there. Hidden in old jars, drawers, or tucked away in a forgotten change cup in someone's car. Just think about it. How many 1978 pennies have you seen in your lifetime? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Yet, among those, a few could hold the power to completely change your life. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the hunt, the mystery, the possibility that $1 million treasure is already in your hands. But here's what makes this particular penny so tricky. Most people confuse the ordinary 1978 Philadelphia cent, which has no mint mark, with the ultra-rare off-metal strike or error variety. And that's where mistakes happen. To separate the ordinary from the extraordinary, you need to pay attention to these clues. First, the color. Genuine copper planchets from 1978 have a deep, uniform tone, while later zinc-based cents often show a lighter, duller look with gray spots. Second, the weight. A real copper penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. If you have a digital scale, that's your first test. Third, the sound. When dropped on a hard surface, a copper coin makes a clear ringing ping, while zinc coins make a flat clack. And finally, the condition. The most valuable examples are often those preserved by accident, tucked away in rolls, stuck in drawers, or sealed in forgotten bank envelopes. A single coin in mint condition can mean the difference between a few dollars and $1 million payday. Dealers across the country are now on high alert. Stories are spreading fast of collectors cashing in small fortunes from coins they nearly gave away. Some say the 1978 no-mint mark penny is one of the last great, hidden treasures of the Lincoln cent series. Others believe its true origins, and how many exist, remain one of the mint's most guarded mysteries. But one thing's for sure, the market for rare pennies has never been hotter. Every month, new discoveries make headlines. A single error, a small variation, can push prices from a few $100s to hundreds of thousands. And as interest surges, collectors are rushing to inspect their coins before someone else beats them to the jackpot. Imagine the thrill of pulling out your old coin jar tonight, sifting through each penny under a desk lamp, and realizing you've been holding one of these treasures all along. That small glint of copper could mean the difference between another ordinary day and a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And just like that man in Ohio, your life could change in an instant. This isn't just about luck, it's about awareness. Knowing what to look for, taking the time to examine the details, and never assuming that something worthless really is. Because sometimes, the smallest, most ordinary things hide the greatest value of all. Every coin has a story. But few stories are as breathtaking as the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a humble coin that defied the odds, rewrote numismatic history, and turned a single cent into $1 million masterpiece. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss those pennies aside. Look closely. Check the date. Feel the weight. And remember, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's worth up to $1.8 million. That's right, a simple 1985 Lincoln penny, something millions of Americans used to buy gum or drop into vending machines, has now become one of the most mysterious and valuable coins ever discovered. It's a story that begins quietly, like all great treasure tales. The year was 1985. Ronald Reagan was president. Back to the Future was in theaters, and gas was just over $1. The Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies, and nobody thought much of them. But hidden among those billions, something went wrong, or maybe, something went right. A small handful of 1985 pennies left the mint with a secret flaw. A minting error so subtle that even trained eyes missed it for decades. Most of these coins were spent, lost, or melted down over time. But one, a single, near-perfect survivor, turned up years later, and when it did, the coin world went silent. The story starts with a collector in Colorado who picked up a roll of old pennies at a local flea market. He almost didn't open it. It was dusty, sealed, and labeled "Old Change." But something told him to take a look. As he sifted through the coins, one penny stood out. The color, the shine, and the faint difference in texture. It was a 1985 Lincoln penny, but something about it felt off. He tossed it under his magnifier, and what he saw sent chills down his spine. The coin had a doubled die, a rare minting error where the design is accidentally struck twice, creating faint but visible doubling on Lincoln's face and the words, "In God We Trust." Even the date had a ghost-like shadow. And the mint mark? D, usually crisp and sharp, seemed misplaced. He sent it for professional grading, not expecting much. But when the results came back, it was authenticated as a genuine 1985 D double die penny, one of the rarest ever found. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. A coin that was literally sitting in pocket change just years before suddenly had an estimated value in the millions. The grading report alone made headlines in coin forums across the country. And when the coin was finally auctioned, it fetched a jaw-dropping $1.8 million. But that was just the beginning. Word spread fast. Treasure hunters, collectors, even casual coin roll searchers rushed to their jars and drawers, hoping lightning would strike twice. What made this coin so valuable wasn't just the doubling. It was the combination of factors: a clear minting error, pristine condition, and the perfect historical timing. Remember, 1985 pennies weren't supposed to be special. They were ordinary copper-plated zinc cents, lightweight and cheap to make. Yet this one defied the odds, escaping the mint's quality control and surviving decades in near-perfect shape. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another collector, thousands of miles away, claimed to have found a similar coin, same year, same mint mark, same doubling pattern. Experts were skeptical. Could there really be another? When it was submitted for grading, the results shocked everyone again. It was genuine. 2 confirmed examples, both with values soaring into 7 figures. The news set off a frenzy. Dealers began offering bounties for unsearched 1985 rolls. Coin shows buzzed with speculation. Even major media outlets picked up the story, calling it the $1 million penny mystery. And with each new rumor, more people began to dig through their change. It all comes down to 3 key details. First, the doubling. Look closely at Lincoln's face, especially his lips and eyes. The extra image almost looks like a faint shadow. Second, the mint mark. On some of these rare coins, the D appears slightly misplaced or distorted, as if it was punched in a different position than usual. And third, the color and strike. The coin's surface should have a bright, almost proof-like shine, and the edges should be sharp, not worn down. If your 1985 D penny has any of these signs, you could be holding a fortune in your hand. But here's the catch: most people miss it. They glance, assume it's nothing special, and spend it. That's exactly what happened for decades. This penny circulated in coffee shops, grocery stores, and gas stations, passed hand to hand by people who had no idea they were touching $1 million treasure. Collectors still talk about the first auction. When the bidding started, the room was quiet. The price climbed past $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, and still kept going. By the time the gavel came down, the crowd was on its feet. A coin that cost 1 cent had just sold for over $1 million. It was history in the making. But the story doesn't end there. Since then, smaller variations have popped up: minor doubling, slight die cracks, and misaligned strikes. While not every one of them is worth a fortune, even the more common varieties can sell for hundreds or thousands if the condition is high. Every penny deserves a second look. Especially one from 1985 with a little D under the date. It could be your ticket to a life-changing discovery. Think about it. How many 1985 pennies have you tossed into a coin jar, or spent without a thought? How many of those coins have been sitting in circulation, quietly waiting for someone to notice their secret? The odds might be slim, but the reward? Absolutely breathtaking. So before you dump out that old change cup, grab a magnifier. Look for the doubling, check the mint mark, and study the fine details. One small imperfection could make the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. And if you're thinking, nah, it can't happen to me, remember, the man who found that first 1985 penny said the exact same thing. Until he did, collectors are still searching. Dealers are still offering big rewards. And the US Mint has never officially explained how this error slipped through. Maybe it was human error, maybe a damaged die, or maybe, just maybe, it was a fluke of fate meant to remind us that treasures can hide in plain sight. Because that's the real magic of coin collecting. You never know what story you might uncover next. A century-old wheat penny, a wartime steel cent, or a modern-day minting mistake that could change your life forever. So keep your eyes sharp, your magnifier close, and your curiosity alive. The next $1 million discovery might be sitting in your pocket right now, and yes, it could be a 1985 Lincoln penny. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn how to spot more hidden treasures like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, and join the growing community of collectors uncovering America's hidden wealth. Because somewhere out there, another coin just like this one is waiting to be found, and it could make you the next millionaire. The year was 1988. Ronald Reagan was finishing his term as president, gas was under $1, and people were jamming to cassette tapes in their cars. Nobody thought twice about the little copper-colored coins jingling in their pockets. But somewhere, deep in the Philadelphia Mint, something unusual happened. A small, almost invisible mistake turned an ordinary Lincoln penny into a $1 million legend. This was the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that, on the surface, looks absolutely normal. But as every collector knows, appearances can deceive. Beneath that reddish-brown glow hides one of the most fascinating mysteries in modern American coinage. It all started with a simple mix-up in the dies used to strike the pennies. For those new to the hobby, dies are the metal stamps that press the coin's design into the blank planchet. In 1988, the U.S. Mint was switching from one obverse die design to another, a subtle change in how Lincoln's portrait looked. Somehow, a few 1988 pennies were struck using a die that wasn't meant for that year. The result? A unique, unmarked coin with tiny design traits that set it apart, and made it a fortune waiting to be discovered. At first, nobody noticed. These coins slipped quietly into circulation. They bought coffee, parking meters, and packs of gum. Years passed. Generations changed. And then, one collector, while sorting through a pile of loose change, noticed something strange about the lettering under Lincoln's portrait. The letters, Liberty, and In God We Trust, seemed just a little different, the spacing, the engraving, the depth of the lines. Curious, he compared it under magnification with other pennies from the same year, and what he saw made his heart race. He had found an early obverse design, the 1989 style lettering, on a 1988 coin. That shouldn't have existed. What he held in his hand was the now famous 1988 no-mint mark transitional era penny. And when it was confirmed by experts, the coin world went wild. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these rare era pennies sold at auction for over $25,000, then another surfaced, and another. Each time, the price climbed higher as collectors realized how scarce they truly were. Today, top-graded specimens have been valued at close to $1 million. Yes, a single penny worth more than a luxury home. Imagine that. A coin that's been sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar, a coin worth 1 cent, turning into a $1 million miracle. But what makes this era so valuable isn't just the design, it's the story it tells. You see, the Mint was in transition during 1988, preparing for design refinements in 1989. Somehow, a die from the future slipped into production early, creating a hybrid coin, part 1988, part 1989. This accident shouldn't have happened, but it did, and those few coins escaped into the world, carrying a secret most people never knew existed. Dealers are still hunting for these. Collectors are obsessed with them. And if you ask coin experts, they'll tell you very few people even realize what to look for. But here's where it gets interesting. You might already have one. To check, grab any 1988 penny with no mint mark. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. Then, look very closely at the D in the word Liberty, and at Lincoln's eyes. The easiest clue is in the designer's initials below his shoulder. On normal 1988 pennies, the initials look clear and slightly separated. But on the rare transitional variety, the initials are thinner and match the 1989 style exactly. Under magnification, you'll see subtle differences in the shape of Lincoln's bust and the spacing of the letters. These are the million-dollar details most people miss. Collectors were shocked when these small differences began showing up in pocket change. Dealers rushed to verify them. Word spread fast across online forums and auction houses. And before long, everyone wanted to know if they had the coin that could change their life forever. One man from Ohio told his story online. He'd been searching pennies with his daughter as a weekend hobby. They'd dump handfuls of coins onto their kitchen table, sorting by year, polishing a few for fun. One night she shouted, "Dad, this one looks weird." He almost ignored her, until he noticed the date, 1988, with no mint mark, and those telltale differences in the design. They sent it off for grading. Weeks later, the results came back, a verified 1988 transitional era penny. Estimated value? Over $100,000. That single night turned a simple father-daughter activity into a six-figure discovery. But not all of them are found so easily. Many are still out there, buried in jars, cash drawers, and coin rolls. That's what keeps the thrill alive, the possibility that your next handful of change could contain a treasure worth $1 million. Think about that. Millions of these pennies were minted, yet only a tiny handful carry this mistake. It's like a modern-day lottery ticket, hidden in plain sight. Some experts believe fewer than a few dozen high-grade examples exist today, which explains why values have skyrocketed. Each time one shows up at auction, bidding wars break out, collectors calling in from across the country, desperate to own a piece of minting history. Some people mistake the ordinary 1988 penny for the rare one and end up selling it for next to nothing. That's why knowing what to look for matters. It's not just about luck, it's about knowledge. The sharpest collectors train their eyes to catch these subtle details. Because once you know the secret, every coin in your pocket becomes a potential goldmine. This isn't the first time a minting mistake has created a fortune, and it won't be the last. From doubled dies to missing mint marks, the U.S. Mint's long history is filled with tiny slips that turned ordinary coins into priceless artifacts. But the 1988 no mint mark transitional era stands out because it bridges two eras. It's a time capsule of change, literally caught between years. Even today, professional graders like PCGS and NGC treat these coins with reverence. A verified specimen in pristine condition can fetch staggering amounts, sometimes pushing the boundaries of what collectors thought possible. One coin even reached nearly $1 million in estimated private sale value, proving again that the smallest treasures often carry the biggest surprises. Start checking. Dig through that old coin jar, your piggy bank, or that drawer full of loose change you've been ignoring for years. Focus on the 1988 pennies with no mint mark. Look for those slight differences in the designer's initials, Lincoln's profile, and the letter spacing. If something feels off, that's your clue. You might just be staring at a piece of numismatic history. The 1981 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a tiny copper coin most people wouldn't even notice, has been turning heads for years. And today, one perfect example is valued at up to $1.1 million. Sounds unbelievable, right? But once you understand how this small, ordinary penny became $1 million treasure, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. The story begins in a time when nobody was really paying attention. It was 1981, Ronald Reagan had just taken office, MTV was brand new, and the US Mint was quietly preparing for a major change in how pennies were made. You see, in 1982, the Mint switched from solid copper to zinc-coated coins. But in 1981, they were still using nearly pure copper, about 95% of it. And tucked into that final generation of copper pennies, a minting mystery began to take shape. Somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint, a few coins were struck slightly off-spec. These had no mint mark, which in itself wasn't unusual for Philadelphia coins. But something about their details, the sharpness of the strike, the thickness of the lettering, even the luster, hinted at something extraordinary. Collectors now believe some 1981 pennies were struck using experimental dies, or test strikes for the coming design changes of 1982. And when those coins slipped into circulation, nobody noticed, until decades later. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2017, a collector at a small-town coin show in Ohio came across a penny that looked too perfect to be real. He thought it was just another shiny Lincoln cent until he placed it under a magnifier. The rim was slightly thicker. The lettering had a sharper edge. And the date, 1981, sat perfectly aligned above the edge of the coin in a way no ordinary strike ever did. He took it to a dealer for a second opinion, and what they found changed everything. This was no ordinary penny. It was a die trial, a transitional strike between the old copper composition and the upcoming zinc versions. It had the distinctive weight of 3.11 grams instead of the lighter 2.5 grams used later. Its surface showed a faint doubling on "In God We Trust," likely from a slightly misaligned die during striking. These small details transformed a 1-cent coin into a museum-level rarity. Word spread fast. Dealers were shocked. Auction houses scrambled to confirm authenticity. And when the grading service verified it as genuine, collectors lined up with offers that hit 6 figures almost instantly. One high-end private sale valued it at nearly $1.1 million, all for a coin that could have been sitting in someone's piggy bank for decades. The answer lies in timing and rarity. 1981 was a transitional year, the end of one era and the beginning of another. Any coin that bridges that line is historically significant. Add to that the fact that most 1981 no-mint mark pennies were heavily circulated and damaged beyond recognition, and you've got a perfect storm for a $1 million find. Here's where it gets even more interesting. There are rumors that the Philadelphia Mint accidentally released a few proof-like test strikes, coins with mirror surfaces and razor-sharp details, never meant for circulation. These are almost impossible to identify without magnification, but collectors claim a few have surfaced in pocket change. If true, it would mean there are still undiscovered 1981 no-mint mark pennies out there worth hundreds of thousands, or more. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin's weight. The 1981 no-mint mark penny should weigh exactly 3.11 grams if it's solid copper. If you place it on a scale and it weighs less, around 2.5 grams, it's a later zinc version or a counterfeit. The genuine copper ones have a deeper tone, a richer ring when dropped, and often show a soft reddish-brown patina that collectors love. And don't forget the lettering. Look closely at Liberty. On rare examples, you might see a faint doubling or a thicker serif on the L and B. The phrase, "In God We Trust," sometimes shows minor die errors, a subtle clue that separates a fortune from a fake. Even the spacing between the 1 and 9 in the date can signal a rare die alignment. One man from California recently found one of these in his late father's coin jar. He was just sorting through old pennies to roll them up when he noticed the date looked sharper than the rest. He tossed it on a jewelry scale, and when the number read 3.11, he almost fell out of his chair. After having it graded, it turned out to be an early die strike in pristine condition, estimated value, $250,000. And that's just one story. Imagine how many more are still waiting to be discovered. Collectors were shocked when they learned how easily this coin could be overlooked. Dealers are now advising everyone to check their 1981 pennies, especially those with no visible mint mark. Some experts believe fewer than a dozen high-grade examples survive today. That scarcity alone drives prices into the stratosphere. And as time goes on, the value of copper-era Lincoln cents only climbs higher. Here's how to tell if you might be holding $1 million miracle. First, check the year, 1981, no mint mark under the date. Next, test the weight, it must be 3.11 grams. Third, inspect the details, sharp rim, bold strike, no signs of wear. If you notice any doubling in the letters or an unusually shiny, proof-like finish, your heart should already be racing. That's when you get it authenticated by a trusted grading service like PCGS or NGC. Never clean the coin, never polish it, and always handle it by the edges. But here's the kicker, these coins don't always reveal themselves easily. Some are so well struck that even experts take hours to confirm their authenticity. And that's what makes the hunt so thrilling. Every old penny you touch could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, a piece of American history hiding in plain sight. So, the next time you're sorting through spare change or cleaning out an old jar of coins, take a second look. That little brown cent from 1981 might just be the key to your $1 million story. Because one man's pocket change became a miracle. And who knows, your next coin could be the one that shocks the world. A 1988 D Lincoln penny, the kind you've probably handled hundreds of times, quietly became one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Back in 1988, the U.S. Mint in Denver struck billions of Lincoln cents. To most people, they were nothing special, just another penny, good for parking meters and gumball machines. But deep within the minting machines, something strange happened. A die, that's the metal stamp used to press the design into blank coins, was mistakenly paired with a design from another year. It was a small, almost invisible error, but one that would transform an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. For years, these pennies circulated unnoticed. People spent them on coffee, dropped them in piggy banks, and tossed them into tip jars. Nobody suspected that one of them could be worth a fortune. Then, one day, a sharp-eyed collector noticed something odd. On the front of his 1988 D penny, Lincoln's portrait looked slightly different. The spacing around the letters, the shape of the date, even the tiny details of the mint mark seemed off. When he compared it to another coin, his jaw dropped. What he held wasn't just any penny, it was a transitional error. Somehow, the U.S. Mint had used the 1989 Master Hub to create dies for some of the 1988 Denver pennies. That meant Lincoln's image and the word, Liberty, were slightly different, microscopic changes that told experts this coin shouldn't even exist. And yet there it was, sitting in the palm of his hand. When the news broke, collectors were stunned. Dealers across the country began checking their 1988 D pennies under magnifying glasses, hoping to strike gold. Coin forums lit up. People posted grainy photos asking, "Do I have the $1 million one?" And while most turned out to be regular cents, a handful were the real deal, and those few changed hands for staggering sums. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At an auction in the early 2000s, one of these rare 1988 D pennies sold for more than $1.2 million. The buyer? A private collector who simply couldn't believe a modern Lincoln cent could reach such astronomical value. The room went silent when the hammer dropped. A penny, a single cent, had just sold for the price of a luxury home. What made it so special wasn't just a mistake. It was the rarity. Experts estimate that fewer than a few dozen of these transitional 1988 D-era pennies still exist today. Most were likely spent and lost forever, mixed into the endless sea of ordinary change. That's what makes this story so unbelievable. The next $1 million penny might still be sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket right now. Let's talk about what to look for. Because if you're watching this video, you might already have one of these coins without realizing it. Take a close look at any 1988 penny with a D mint mark, that tiny letter just below the date. Now focus on the word, America, on the back. In most 1988 pennies, the A and M in America are close together. But on the rare transitional error, there's a noticeable gap, the design used in 1989. Flip it over again and check Lincoln's portrait. On the rare one, his bust is slightly sharper, and the spacing around the word, Liberty, looks tighter. Look at the mint mark itself. On the rare 1988 D, the D was hand-punched into the die, and its alignment and style can differ subtly from regular strikes. A coin microscope, or even your smartphone zoom, can reveal the difference. It's tiny, but that's the kind of tiny detail that's turned regular folks into millionaires. Collectors were shocked when early examples of this coin were authenticated by major grading companies like PCGS and NGC. Certified examples in top condition, what collectors call mint state, have commanded 6- and 7-figure prices. And the higher the grade, the higher the value climbs. One near-perfect specimen graded MS-67 fetched over $1 million. Even lower-grade examples, with just light wear, can sell for thousands. A penny you could have found in your pocket change in 1988, now worth enough to pay off a house. That's the dream that keeps coin hunters searching. One man even told a story of finding his in a collection he inherited from his grandfather. He thought it was just sentimental value, until he took it to a coin show and walked out with life-changing money. These stories remind us that value hides in plain sight. The 1988 D penny teaches us that miracles can be small, smaller than a thumbnail, but still powerful enough to change a life. Because for every coin collector or treasure hunter out there, this isn't just about metal and mint marks. It's about hope. It's about the thrill of knowing something extraordinary might be hiding right under your nose. But the story doesn't end there. Experts say that because the minting process was automated and massive in 1988, there could still be undiscovered examples out there. Every year, new finds pop up, sometimes in estate sales, sometimes in old coin rolls, and sometimes just lying forgotten in jars of change. One recent discovery was made by a man in Kansas who decided, on a whim, to go through his old childhood coin jar. He noticed the slight spacing difference on the reverse, sent it in for grading, and the coin came back authentic. That single penny sold for $125,000 at auction. Just imagine that moment of realization. So, if you've got a collection, or even a handful of old change, don't ignore your 1988 D pennies. Every one you check could be a step closer to that $1 million find. Look for that wide AM spacing on the reverse, the sharper details on Lincoln's bust, and the distinctive mint mark. These are the hallmarks of one of the rarest modern minting mistakes in U.S. history. Dealers are still on the hunt. Collectors whisper about it at coin shows. And online forums buzz every time a new one surfaces. Because this isn't just any penny, it's proof that history, mystery, and fortune can fit in the palm of your hand. So next time you're counting your change, take a second look. That dull brown coin you almost tossed aside might be worth more than you can imagine. Check it, study it, treasure it. Because the 1988 D Lincoln penny worth up to $1.2 million isn't just a legend, it's real. And one of them could still be waiting for you to find it.